I wanted to do a short video here on some of Bob Beamon's jumps that were not world record jumps, but I think still display some of his nuances in the way that he managed the problem of running fast and then jumping as far as possible. And that's exactly what I think that the theme is here, is a problem being solved rather than a technical model being adhered to. Nowadays, you're going to get the same rigid technicalities in a lot of jump coaching. You're going to say run tall and then short last step and drive the knee and all these things. But you'll see through these jumps that Bob solved those problems a little bit differently. And I'm not saying to jump exactly like Bob. As humans, we all have our own nuances and our own optimal way of movement. And I think being a coach is almost more like a facilitator. The coach facilitates the athlete towards their own optimal way of solving a problem. So anyways, in this particular jump, I'll just play it here in slow motion. Here we go. Bob he's known for his long last step, which again is his way of solving the problem. And he did the long last step when he jumped 29.2, 21 inches, I believe, farther than anyone else had. This time you actually see two long steps, long and then long yet again. And so usually you really, and this again, Adarian Barr has been a huge mentor to me, has taught me a load of information in all of these realms. But you see a long, and when he jumped the world record, it was short, long. And you really want to be one or the other, long, short, or short, long. Going into a long last step helps an athlete who may not have as much speed to direct that force. So here's that long last step. Everything's coming down here. It helps you to direct it all upwards well. If it's a short last step, and let's just say he hit the ground, here, and that was his step. If this was his angle between the ground, now he has very little room to go upwards. There's very little upwards room to go. If he hits here like he does, now there's more room to project in an upwards manner. And so we see this in high jump a lot, particularly there's a lot of athletes who have that long last step and they go up. And when they're coached into these short last steps, all of a sudden they have a hard time getting vertical and the timing just feels weird. And so natural movement's an important thing. So there we see him go. And then one big characteristic is that bounce out of the landing that Darian talks about, that double bounce, which I think is fun. It's just fun to play around with. Here's a cool bit, watching him run from the front. And one thing you can pay attention to is watch that foot there. And watch how much spin. See how much that's spinning, that heel spinning to the inside. And then go to the next step. The shoes are white, so it's kind of hard. But if you watch that step, you'll see that heel spin. It really spins to the inside, and then it snaps back out of it, though. That's the key, is it doesn't stay there. It snaps back. And so he's pronating. He's moving to really get maximal inside edge pronation, that elastic loading, because this is a seriously elastic dude, and then it's going to unload out. Okay, so you're going to see the same thing here. And he's already actually, if you look at like lines and things like that, and we drew a line straight down from midline, he's actually on the beyond the midline of it. So this would probably not be good practice ultimately for being a sprinter. I think that there is something to be said about being stacked to a level, but I think for him and what he's doing, maybe he would have jumped a little farther. Who knows if his sprinting was a little more, if he kind of could clean up that element. But what's important to me is that is what's happening at the foot. And we talk about elastic athletes being very foot dominant. It's almost as if he's really trying to maximize his pronation and inside edge, and he's moving in a manner that does that. And so you'll see that, and you'll see it again. See that contact, spin, pronate, really trying to load up elastically and coming out. And one of the craziest things you're going to see here as he continues down the runway is just how he's steering himself. See that foot come way down on the inside. It's coming way down on the to the right of the midline, if you'll see it there. And then it gets even wilder here. You're going to see Look how far that foot comes down. Bam! You could see a little bit of that in modern jumpers, but you don't see that much typically. But I think this is just showing how athletic Bob is in not fouling and being on the board. And I think that, and Darian has taught me some of this stuff recently, when we tend to run in very manufactured models, run tall and stacked and stomp the ground, then that rhythm causes us to have a little less ability around the board. You think about a basketball player operating naturally to set up a layup or a dunk and things like that. I mean, look at this. What's crazy too is see how far his head is over this way, and that to match the foot, it's like a giant bow kind of. And again, this clearly was not his world record jump. I doubt the world record jump looked like this, but it just shows how good of a problem solver he is. And those problem solving, all those little motions to solve problems can really add up in terms of having a really robust library of movement ability that can help you to put together a better, real big jump. And clearly that's something that he has done. And so I think that just situations, and I know Rob Assis of Homewood Flossmoor, who's been on the podcast, he does interesting things with jumpers to make their work more reactive. And I think in the sense of doing things on claps and turnaround, you jump and turn around and come back and jump, and you're blending sport with the jump itself. And again, I'm not saying this is what to do, but it's what he had to do not to foul. And I think just the fact of being that athletic to not foul puts more of a human innate element into things. I just think that's really amazing, to be honest. And you see how he can still get up. What's cool too is watch that swing leg foot, and it's all the way over here, and now watch that thing whip back going this way. Just showing how we load elastically and how physics really drives a lot of this stuff, not necessarily just push your knee out in front of you and stick it there. So really, really cool stuff. And if we keep advancing. It's the jump. I won't talk too much about that. And then watching this from the backside too, you can see how lean forward he is. His chest and xiphoid, as Darian says, is really projecting forward. And again, you can really see how he is really just trying to set up his foot. Like if you look at how far off the midline this foot is, it's the left of midline. Again, probably not a way you want to sprint ideally if you're a 100 or 200 meter sprinter, but this is a manner of moving that really runs from the foot upwards and really loads that foot up. He's really, you can see there again that spin from the backside. He is loading the pronation in that foot. Look at the calf. Darian talks about this too. Look at that calf being loaded through the rotation, and now he's spinning out of it. It snaps out of it. He doesn't stay there. That would be overpronation. He snaps out of it and then gets to the next step. Again, I think maybe that's a little extreme. I think that there's probably, and I don't know what his world record jump looked like. There's probably arguments to say that if you stacked him up a little better, that could definitely be a good thing, and I would say that's probably true. But again, I'm just watching this because this is a human and natural environment without a lot of extra coaching and things like that. And then you also see this, Darian talks about this wrist flap. So see that wrist coming and flapping, it's curling. That's a movement option. That's a method to be able to gain more time in the stride. It's a fine tuner of the stride. It helps you not to foul. It helps you to load yourself up more. It does a lot of really good things. And you tend to see that too in uncoached, put quotes on that, uncoached athletes. And that's a controller. And if we cue too heavily on the hands and the arms and wrists, we can coach out that fine-tuned controller. So again, I'm not saying that this is the technical model. It's just an observation. It's fun things to observe. And I think it's just and this guy jumped 29 too, right? So